Hey guys, it's Siege here. As you know, TC and I are brand new to this podcast game and are still learning the ropes. We noticed some audio issues this episode and wanted to let you know that we noticed it, we're working on it, and hope you enjoy the episode nonetheless. Here it goes.
What's up, bros? Welcome to Robin's World.
Where it's from?
TC.
Yeah, we are getting deep into this first season, and let me just say, it is panning out exactly how I thought it would.
Is it panning out how you thought it was? Explain to me.
It's very little kiddie. It feels so childish in comparison to the other seasons.
You know, I have to admit, I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, this first season is a different show.
It's a completely different show, yeah.
It's so like you and I talked about it earlier, but it's like the first season of Saved by the Bell. Good morning, Miss.
That was a completely different show.
Yeah,
it even had a different title. Good morning, Miss Bliss. Yeah,
Miss Bliss. And I was just like, yeah, this is kind of what this first season feels like. But it's also really interesting to me because you pointed it out that this is the only season that Minkus is in. So it's weird that it can be so iconic and at the exact same time.
It's almost like he works really well in this format that the rest of the show did not work as well in.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
he's made for a different type of show.
Yeah, I mean, because right now, let's just get into it. So we are dealing with an episode called Killer Bee, which I kind of wrote this down. The naming of this episode, Killer Bee, tells me that this was probably a different idea in the script. Like, I feel this format seems like it was probably a spelling bee originally in the
I understand that. There's no reason for it to be named Killer Bee. There's not any reference to a killer, a bee, or a spelling bee.
Yeah, exactly.
It's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. So the name Killer Bee, to me, I was like, was this supposed to be like a spelling bee, which would make more sense and is way more conventional in the TV trope? And
yeah, that might be too conventional though. And I guess Feeney's the geography teacher, or no, I guess it's grade school, so he's all the
yeah. So we're gonna get into that because actually that's not till a later episode, but there's this whole thing of like, what exactly does Feeney teach? Now in this episode. Not in this episode, but I think in the first season he is like elementary school, so like he does all of the major lessons, geography.
Yeah, because he was the one giving Corey crap about his math. In the previous episode, so he's doing math and geography. He's just apparently geography is just a love of his. So,
math, geography. Earlier we did literature with
Romeo and Juliet. That's right.
So I think as of right now, he's just like that elementary school teacher where he does all of the basics and they have electives.
Okay, all right.
But that's what I'm going at. But like it's never really defined, so it's kind of weird right now.
Sure, it's a bad name, guys. Don't go off the name for this episode.
Yeah, all right.
It's completely misleading.
To go off the name, we do have to go to our segment, Tell Me About It, where I read the Hulu description. And it says, Corey schemes to enter a contest so he can win a coveted baseball prize.
I think that's pretty accurate. This baseball thing in this first season is just really throwing me for a loop. It's every episode. Like, we get it. He likes baseball.
You're right. It's a little I guess you know what it is. It's like by episode 5, we're just like, does this kid have any other interest? Anything?
Yeah. And also, like, they bring up a great point in the episode that this prize has nothing to do with the contest that they're doing it in.
So angry at this prize. This prize, like, when we get to that section, I was like, this is the dumbest. This
whole episode is really just a stretch across the board.
Thank you. I was just like, wait, what? Why? This makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get into it. But.
All right, so getting into the episode, let's go up into it. All right, so our opening scene is we are in the classroom where Feeney is handing back tests. There's no Topanga.
There's no Topanga in this episode, and guys, I immediately notice a difference.
Yeah,
like as far as me just being into the episode, like Minkus does a good job, but Topanga is just such a great character that for her to be absent after having such a big role in the previous one doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly. That, and then also I feel like with the rest of the cast, because like Black Third Seat Kid is seen a little bit later in this episode.
Yeah, we do get the return of Black Third Seat Kid.
But that makes me think that like it's that age old problem where it's like they shot several episodes, but they released them at different times.
You know what? You're right. That's exactly what happened. That's 100% what happened.
Because this just doesn't, like, there are lots of things that, again, not that Boy Meets World is ever known for its consistency, but like there are a lot of things in this episode that you're like, it doesn't kind of make sense with the world we've established so far.
Because we live in a post-Topanga Boy Meets World universe, and this episode feels like it was shot pre-Topanga.
Yeah, it was definitely before they even had an idea of Topanga. And I'll get into it a little bit later. It's even a little bit pre the Feeny we know. Like, I am not a fan of Feeny in this episode.
No, you know what? Feeny has like one redeeming moment towards the end of the episode, but you're right. He's just kind of like not a great person to Cory in this episode.
Yeah,
he's
and
almost
like,
rude to him.
Yeah, and I'm just like, like this episode would have worked for me had they had another teacher. Like, had this been like his elective teacher or his coach or something, I would have loved this episode so much more.
I think that this whole first season and this kind of back and forth between Cory and Feeny is to show us their relationship and their bond growing so that we're able to believe that Feeny has this special place in his heart for Cory in later seasons. That's the only thing I can determine.
Which makes sense, but with that, what you said makes sense, but it's like I will give it to the shot out of order because again, what we've seen so far is like we already have that connection with Cory. So this episode makes it seem very, very, again, George just doesn't seem like George in this episode.
Well, I would also say that we're to believe that this is Cory's first year with Feeny as an actual teacher. Like up until this point, Feeny has only been a neighbor to Cory.
Correct.
So maybe this is again just the growing pains of their relationship. I don't know. I'm maybe giving it too much.
We're fighting for it, but yeah. All right, getting back to it. Still in the opening scene. Feeny is handing out tests. The highest scores, of course, goes to Minkus.
Minkus. Always Minkus. Highest test score, Minkus.
Yeah, exactly. And then Feeny hands back the other test and says that Cory got a C. And then this is where Cory's like, how could I get a C? And then Feeny's like, East Germany is not a country anymore. And Cory's like, the textbook says that it's next to West Germany. And Feeny points out that the textbook also says that Hawaii and Alaska will make great states one day. And as funny as that joke is, I'm like, is this Cory's fault?
Yeah. What we're seeing here is, even though apparently he goes to upper class Philadelphia school, they have dated textbooks. And Cory says to Feeny, he was like, hey, how can I get a C? I actually studied. And that's where Feeny brings up the point to where, like, hey, these books are old and out of date. You got to start watching the news and start getting more up to date on current events. But again, how is that Cory's fault?
Yeah, exactly. Is that his? I feel that as a teacher, I am not a teacher. You're married to a teacher, so maybe it's different. But like, I'm not a teacher, and in my mind, and as someone who has been a student, I would think that the test should reflect both the lesson taught, but it should like. This isn't college where you're like, oh, you expect them to do more. If a kid reads the textbook, then it should kind of really correlate with
or just be like, hey, guys, heads up. This textbook says something that's not true. Just so you know, at the bottom of page 33, this is incorrect. Know this instead. Like, I feel like I've had teachers do that.
I don't think that, at least in this episode, I was really upset because I was like, no, Cory's completely right. If this boy who doesn't study took initiative, took out the book, read the source material, and you're like, oh, that's outdated. You should have been paying attention in class. It's like yeah, but whatever you teach should correlate with the textbook.
Sure. 100%.
So yeah, but this is where Feeny says the Board of Education doesn't have funds to keep up. You have to watch the news. And I'm like, no, he's 5 years old. Well, actually, he's like 12, but still.
No, I mean it's as simple as like I don't get this. If you give me a book, I'm going to study the book. Like I don't know. This whole episode just feels again a whole big stretch, but
exactly. But then that's when Corey goes that why can't he's like, why can't history or geography be like other subjects? Math 2 and 2 is always 4. Science, the world always goes around the sun, and history, Lincoln always gets shot in the head. And this is
Feeny says Lincoln got off easy.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we've kind of hit on it. I just feel like Feeny is like done. I don't know if it's like just mid-semester.
Yeah, he feels like a teacher that's at the end of his ropes, which is again unfortunate because Feeny always seemed to get such a joy out of his education or teaching, that it seems odd for him to have this kind of like this burden. Like,
yeah.
Oh, gosh, I got to grade these papers and deal with these kids where it's like, no, dude, you love this. What are you talking about?
And that's what I'm saying. I was like, to me, Feeny has to be like, either like towards the end of a pay period or like he's just
sure.
Like it's midwinter blues or something, but it's just like this is not the Feeny that we know. And at this point in time, Corey's not even challenging Feeny in ways we've seen him challenge Feeny before.
I think the whole process of Feeny teaching the kids lessons without outwardly teaching them lessons is the switch that's gonna happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And once Boy Meets World as a show realizes that that's where Feeny becomes like this mystical James Earl Jones figure, once they find that as part of his character, that works really well. But it's just taking a while to get.
I love this James Earl Jones. That's a great way of.
Yeah, he is. He's the white James Earl Jones.
All right, so with that Lincoln joke, we have our opening credits, and
eye roll. I'm still listening to all of it, and I hate it.
All right, and then after the opening credits, Feeny announces the plot of this episode, which is that there's a geography regional tournament, and
called Killer Bee.
Yeah, called Killer Bee.
Just to try to make it work.
And who will be representing the school this year? It is, of course, Minkus. And
I do want to say that I pointed this out in a previous episode that we do have Minkus fulfilling his role as Corey's antagonist just by being the opposite of Corey. He is always smart. He always has the answers. He makes Corey look like trash, or makes Corey look lazy, I guess, because you have Corey going, I studied for this test, how is it possible? But in this episode specifically, you see Corey realizing that and then trying to, like, oh, you know what, I'm going to try to beat Minkus this time. I want to try to be just as good, if not better, than Minkus, which I think is a great device for these two as characters.
Yeah. I mean, you've kind of pointed it out, but Minkus is there to kind of always show up Corey, and I see it a lot now that you've mentioned it, where it's like the only purpose of Minkus is to show how Corey struggles in school.
He Corey's constantly confused by everything, and Minkus seems to have all the answers.
Especially seeing that, like with Sean, if we were just to have Sean in the class, Corey's average. Corey, it's not like Sean's getting B's, or if Sean's getting failing out. That's never really shown.
I don't know that the Sean that we've seen is the Sean that's Sean. That's the thing. That Sean is essentially like second seat kid in these episodes, with the exception of the hair episode. He was more of a best friend, but even here, it just seems like he's back to being second seat kid.
It's really funny because with Sean, I think I have to keep reminding myself of where we're at. And it's good to see where we're at because we know so much more about the future. And you do have to be like, no, this is where we are in the story. This is where these characters are.
Like, Sean, if you were just watching this show, like the first few episodes with us, having not seen the show before, you'd be like, who is Sean? Why do they keep talking about him? Who is this character? Because he's hardly in these episodes.
Well, honestly, I would just think he is that best friend trope. He's six to Corey's Blossom. It's just like a
sure,
especially at this time. That's who you are. You're a best friend trope. You're a Waldo, Geraldo, Faldo. It's like
Waldo, Geraldo.
Which, by the way, I always say his full name, It's Waldo, Geraldo, Faldo.
We're doing Family Matters when we're done with this.
I don't know if I could do Family Matters. Because...
No, you can't. You can't, man. I once saw an episode where Steve turned himself into a karate Asian man. It was really offensive. I can't.
Okay, back to this. So Minkus thinks that the prize will be a pull down map.
And he's all excited about it.
Yeah, he's really excited about this. But it actually turns out to be the Bat Boy at the opener of the World Series. What kind of prize is this?
Again, this is just an absurd prize for a knockoff spelling bee. This seems like a thing
regional tournament.
Sure, hey, we're gonna have someone who won Little League do this, something related to baseball win this prize because that makes more sense. There's no reason for this to be the prize of this award, especially when everyone's wants a map anyway. That seems like a cheaper, more manageable gift.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's a cheaper gift, but my whole thing was isn't this a little bit, and maybe my response to this is a little bit sexist, but isn't this a little bit sexist for you to be
sure,
oh yeah, the prize to this regional geography tournament.
Yeah, that's
is to be Bat Boy at the opener of the World Series, and it's just who's that for? This was very specific in mind. Whoever created.
Keep in mind, the kids who are signing up to be in this geography tournament are not the kids that give a damn about the World Series. It just doesn't. All of this feels just so I don't know. But keep going.
On that, yeah, I feel it's funny because you're just keep going, and I feel that's what this episode was. I was logging in all of the scenes, and I'm this episode just feels like it's constantly
dragging.
Yeah.
It just there was no again. Minkus really brought out a lot of excitement to the scenes, but other than that, I was kind of just rolling my eyes through most of this episode.
Yeah. All right. So on that, this gets Corey's attention, of course, and he says that he wants to make a play for it. And Sean points out that he didn't even remember the Berlitz Wall. Which again is just a joke about them not knowing geography. Black third seat kid again we see in the background, and class is dismissed, but Corey goes and approaches Feeney and says that he's making a mistake by bringing Minkus. And what's the most important thing in a competition? And Feeney's talent, skill, and Corey's doing this whole little head shaking bit, which is kind of cutesy in TV. But he responds, it's the will to win, which I actually do like. And it's episodes or scenes like this where you go back into Corey kind of being ahead, are more mature for his age in certain elements.
I think if anything, we learned throughout this episode and the previous episodes that if Corey wants something, he will work to get it.
Yeah.
If he wants, a water gun for Water Wars, or if he wants kids to sign a petition to keep a librarian there, he's going to find a way to do it. He is a smart kid who just doesn't use his potential towards schoolwork. And this is the first time we're seeing him going, no, I can try to do this and I can succeed in this if you just give me a shot.
Exactly. And with this, Corey says, I'm going to win this for you. And then Feeney's but you're sucking up to me. And he goes, as hard as I can. And with that, this is where I get into it. Feeney goes, his response is, you've given me full confidence. Corey's in me? He's no, in Minkus. And again, Corey is making a play for it. And Feeney is just so... He's cutting down Corey in a way I don't think I'm just not used to seeing Feeney be this way.
I don't know. I feel again, if not judging Feeney based on his future development, but just judging based on what we've seen of him so far, it's not unusual. I guess I'm not shocked by the way he's treating Corey in this incarnation of Feeney, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's my opinion, but I disagree. I completely
Because it seems like he's just been so annoyed. Like, this is the kid who's been listening to baseball in my class, and this is the kid who tried to paint my fence, or like, you know, or whatever. Like, Corey's always just a problem, and he seems like he's always a distraction. I can see why Feeny would be annoyed by this kid.
Again, that's what I will say. It's like, I think of it as, that's what I'm saying. Is like, is it just like Feeny's just exhausted at this point? Because that's what I'm saying. Feeny usually has like a brave face when it's dealing with Corey, or he's like he's like the adult who knows that this kid is trying to wiggle his way into whatever, but he's just tired in this episode. Sure.
All right, let's just move right into this Eric storyline, because I just have so many complaints and comments, guys. This is ridiculous.
It is. So, I will warn you, I'll be talking a lot about white people in this. I'm just gonna put that out there, because this is definitely like I watched most of these scenes being like this is white people problems, because I just don't know. My parents' answer would have been a very swift, oh, well then don't go. All
right, let's explain the concept.
All right, we go, the next scene is at the Matthews residence, and we see Amy ask Eric to babysit, and he says he can't, and she's like, oh, that wasn't a request, which I kind of like. She was like, oh, you thought you had some say in this? No, it's like I was asking you to be polite, but babysit your kid. He says he has tickets to the Aerosmith concert, and he's bringing Heather, who, again, good for Heather.
This is the same Heather from the first and third
episodes in, and we're still with Heather.
Yep.
And Amy says that she'll just get a sitter then, and they could drive together, because apparently the parents are also going to the Aerosmith concert.
Now, let me just say this. Before we get into Eric's reaction to this, I thought this was a very interesting plot device. You have a very unique situation with Aerosmith, because they're kind of this cross-generational group. Where they kind of had this resurgence in the early 90s, you know, all those Alicia Silverstone music videos. But they also have this great, like, you know, history of the 70s too. So it makes sense to use this to kind of bridge this generation. But I feel like they could have done a way better job than just Eric complaining that his parents wanted to be in the same room as him. Like, they live in the same house as you. Like, why are you so offended?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She even, like, my whole thing is she gives Eric an out even. She's like, oh, you know, we asked you to be a babysitter so we could go to this thing. You said no because you also have tickets to it. And I'm like, all right, well, instead of telling you can't go and us sacrificing our night, or anyone sacrificing their night, we will pay out of pocket for someone to come watch Corey and Morgan so you can still attend the concert. And, like, we'll even drive you there. And he's just like, you're too old to be going to Aerosmith.
He is legit mad that his parents are going to be, he even says, like, I'm not going to go and be, like, in the same car with you, or in the same, like, arena with you. And I'm like, why? What did these people do to you besides just be good parents? Like, jeez. Like, where's all this anger coming from?
Yeah, again, these are white kid problems.
Yeah, this was really just like the idea of going to a concert was so exciting that if my mom offered or whatever to take me to a concert, like, yeah, let's go. I'm down.
Exactly.
I'm a child. Who else would I go with?
But he wanted to go with Heather, and that's my other thing is like they didn't even say like, oh, we'll sit together or anything like that. It was just like, oh, all right, cool. You want to go? Let's all go. And he's just like, no, you can't be in the same building as I'm going to be in.
Yeah, it's not great.
So enter Corey, Sean, and Black Third Seat Kid, and they're kind of holding Minkus hostage with their.
I wrote that same note verbatim. That I have it. I can screenshot it and send it to you. Corey, Sean, Black Third Seat Kid kidnap Minkus.
And Corey asks his mom if she's ever met Minkus, and she's like, "No, it's nice to meet you." And his first response is, "Call my mother." And they just ignore that, by the way.
Yep, doesn't bat an eye at it. Like, this kid's clearly asking an adult for help.
Yeah, he is. He's asking an adult for help. And she's just like, she goes right by it. Third seat kid says that Minkus is just nervous and they're going to take him upstairs now. They never explain what's going on. And Minkus yells.
The parents don't even seem interested in like asking questions, just to be like, hey, who's your new friend? Does his mom know he's here? Anything. Basic stuff, Amy. Come on.
Minkus yells 27842. It's the only Minkus in the book. And so there's a throwback in several ways. One, I was like, that has to be like his address, right? Because that's too few of numbers.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand what that was supposed to be either. I thought, is this a pager number? What is
I figured it was like the beginning of his address. Sure. So, and then like if you look, but like if they're the only Minkus in the book, then all he had to say was like,
there's no need to give the clarification. It's just, hey, look up Minkus in the phone book because it's the 90s and I know you have a phone book.
Exactly. We are clearly pulling apart this episode because this episode.
Yeah, man, like whatever. We're mad at this episode and we're taking shots, whatever.
But no, here's the thing. I'm loving reviewing this, but it's just this episode. There's so many bits of dialogue where I'm like, wait, what? Why? Why are we doing this? All right.
So Minkus is there,
Yeah, he goes, I'm glad that you could come over, and he tells him to chill. And Minkus like, I don't even know what chill means. And then this is when Sean's like, 1 out of every 4 people is a nerd, and clearly there's 4 of them, so Minkus is the nerd, and they can help him. And Minkus is like, but I like who I am.
Can we just talk about this peer pressure, this like, we're going to pressure this kid who's doing well academically to specifically not focus on his studies just so we can get some kind of prize? Like,
that is classic television. So I'm not even going to pull at that string because there's like, that is something that's just a television trope. It's
like, these boys are bullies, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is bullying on another level. You're messing with this kid's academic future. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they don't see that
too hard.
What happens? So Minkus is like, they're like, do you like it when people make fun of you? And he's like, no. Do you like it when you're last picked for teams? No. Do you like it when everyone pulling your underwear up your butt all the time? And then this is when Minkus is like, it's not so bad. And I'm like, what is this?
What was that supposed to mean?
Thank you.
Because that has several different interpretations.
I completely was thinking the same thing, and I was like, I have no idea who that joke was written for.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because I'm not sure what he means by that.
Yeah. Like, again,
it's like, enjoy the pressure? I don't know.
Yeah. Let's not because of who we're dealing with. Let's just move forward. But it's still
move on.
It was a very weird joke, and I wanted to call it out.
It made me uncomfortable.
Same. All right. So then they ask, "Let us help you. Don't do the tournament. It'll be bad for you." But Minkus is like, "I like geography. I like the adventure and the exoticism of it." And then he even points out, he's like, "If I don't do the tournament, will you like me?" And they're like, "No." He's like, "So what's in it for me?" Which is a very valid question.
I need some help understanding this about Minkus, which is, I don't understand how he's a real kid. There is something about Minkus that is so just like he should be like in a special school for like smart kids. Like, he's that smart that he doesn't seem like he's challenged at all in his studies. He's constantly getting A's on everything. Like, it's borderline irresponsible to keep him in this class where he's not being challenged.
That's a good point. I mean, do they have AP classes in 5th grade?
Because Minkus is either brilliant or he's just super nerdy. But I don't know. He just seems to be doing so. His character just. I need a little bit more than just this machine of a boy who always has the answer to everything. That just seems like there needs to be something else to his character, because he does great with what he does, but there's no face behind the mask.
Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. No, and I agree with you. It's like in this episode specifically, we're dealing with tropes more than we are with characters.
Yeah, and this trope of just this kind of nerdy smart kid has been done so many times that I feel like we're just seeing impressions of tropes instead of impressions of people we actually had interactions with in school.
Which, I mean, as we've said, we're being a little bit harsh because we know that this show does better with its characters, but in this episode, we're dealing with surface characters all around.
No, I knew I was gonna nitpick this episode. I gotta be completely honest. I knew as soon as we got done watching it, I was like, man, we're gonna tear this episode up a little bit. Just because I know it doesn't reach the caliber of the last episode, which was just so significant and great. This just feels,
Yeah. So they negotiate with Minkus, and they're just kind of like you name your price, we'll do it. He's like when you're playing bombardment, don't aim at my head. And that's like the agreement that they come up with, which again, I feel like you could have asked for more, but whatever, we're going with that. And
Black Dirt Seat Kid says, what's the point of playing if we can't throw it at his head? Jeez, like, honest bullies.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're dealing with right now. So back in the kitchen, Alan comes home and Eric is like, you guys can't go to Aerosmith. So Eric is still being like a little he's still
upset about them just wanting to see their concert, like it's their date night,
letting them live their life. Yeah, exactly. And they point out that they've been listening to Aerosmith since before he was born.
They said that Eric's first Aerosmith concert was in his mom's belly at Madison Square Garden in 1978. So just to date this, Eric was born in 1978, which seems so ancient now.
It does. Eric is officially 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
Which again, it makes sense for the time being, but like I just pointed it out because
it makes us seem old now.
I'm an 88. Makes maybe you seem old. I'm still living.
I'm the last week of 87. That doesn't even count.
Point being is I'm younger, and I'm 10 years younger than Eric in this episode, so I don't feel that bad. But that does mean that Eric is like mad old.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So anyway, he goes, how old are these guys anyway? Like 1 million? And they're like, yeah, they're our age. And Alan shows his tickets, and they're like third row seats. And like, I love this. So Alan's like, yeah, when you're older, you get the good seats. And that's pretty awesome. And again, they even offer to buy Eric seats closer so he can see the stage.
That's really where I lost interest in all of Eric's storyline, because they were like, hey, we have third row seats. We will offer to buy you closer seats. They didn't even say sit with us. They were like, hey, we'll get you closer seats so you can actually see the concert. And Eric was just like, you're lucky if I even go to this thing if you're going to be there. Like, what? Like, you're trying to impress your date. Like, I feel like just getting as close to the stage as possible would matter more than who's around you. You've been to concerts. Yeah. Literally, the people around you don't matter.
No.
As long as their freaking stupid phone is not in front of your face, it doesn't matter.
So you're right. I personally, I mean, like, I get it. I can't say I've gone to anything with my parents, and my relationship with my parents are different than Eric's are, or like TV kids are with their parents. So I get that whole thing. But at the same time, as you pointed out, if I'm at a concert, I'm there to enjoy myself and have a good time. Even if the people around me aren't living up to the hype that I want to be, it's like forget you. I'm here to see who I came to see and have a very, very good time.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Your answer is just Lasai for like.
And then just again, I appreciate that they're trying to do something with Eric's character besides him just kind of be this pretty boy, but this just seems like it doesn't seem organic to his character.
I disagree. I feel like it can be organic to his character because what we know about them that they are privileged middle class kids. So like the idea that he would be this upset at his parents joining him for a concert, it's very low stakes. And yet as a teenager,
maybe that's it. Maybe it's the fact that it's a very low stakes problem that they're trying to escalate to a full B storyline when this is like a C storyline at best.
Yeah, it's very low stakes. There's like, you're like,
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, what do you lose?
He ends up going to this concert and doesn't have that great of a time. All right,
like I feel like an even better storyline would have been like he didn't know they were going to the same concert and he showed up there and his parents were there. You know, it's like that's a better episode. Yeah, that is. All right, so back at school, Minkus resigns from the geography tournament, and this is when he tells Feeny that he just doesn't feel like it goes with his new brand, and he's going to be Stuart Minkus, regular guy. And Feeny is like, I've always considered you exceptional. And why would you settle for being a regular guy? R.E. average, R.E. mediocre. Which, you know, again,
Feeny just feeling like he has some solid preferences towards Minkus.
Yeah, exactly.
More so than anyone else. And I think, you know, it's funny because they talk about this geography tournament like, oh, you know, Feeny's won the last 5 years. He just seems real kind of selfish. He's just like, I just want this win.
Yeah.
But why does this matter to Feeny? Like,
and my whole thing is, I didn't mention this earlier, but like, why is this just the Feeny thing? Like, are other classes not participating? Like, is it just that Feeny?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? It's just Minkus is somehow representing the entire school, we're expected to believe, because it's regional. And there's no explanation given as to why. And it's just like we're doing a lot of jumping around in this episode.
To me, it would make more episode if there were other teachers and it was a school event and they were like, everyone was talking trash to Feeny. And then Feeny was like, no, I want to show these people up.
Yeah.
And like, that makes more sense to just have it be this competition that Feeny cares so much about that he's being rude to his other classmates and pressuring Minkus to do something he doesn't want to do.
Exactly.
I don't know.
And then
it seems weird.
This is where Feeny, like I said, he was like, I always consider you exceptional. And Minkus is like, well, exceptional guys get balls thrown at their heads, and he just wants to be a regular guy. And we get to see Corey's kind of like mouthing the words, which says that he like coached Minkus into this. Minkus is like, he catches himself and he's like, no, it ain't gonna work. So it's like, he's trying to dumb himself down a little bit. And then that's when Corey is like, hey, you know, I'm your guy. And he's like, Feeny, come on, I'm the only game in town. And then Feeny goes, then there's no game.
If I were Feeny and I had graded Corey's test for like a semester and I saw that, you know, obviously this kid got nothing more than a C, I would assume that like, yeah, my top student isn't going to compete in this competition. There really isn't any hope for me to win this because I know what you're capable of doing. It's harsh, but I guess I can understand it.
Well, yeah, even Feeny does say you've never shown any interest in geography. And Corey responds, yeah, but I'm interested in the geography tournament. And you can teach me. I'm an empty vessel. And and that's when George is like, all right, so are you saying that you're going to dedicate yourself to really trying to learn this? And I guess what the approach that I'm taking to this is that you said earlier yourself, Corey has, and maybe it's because this was shown out of sequence, but Corey has proven that he does go hard for a goal that he wants.
He goes so hard.
So for the fact of George to be like, no, like Corey made it very clear. Yeah, you're right. Corey has no,
interest in geography.
Yeah, interest in geography. He even says, no, that's not what this is about. I'm interested in winning this tournament. And I think that that's the point that should be really...
Well, I think at this moment, we're supposed to kind of understand that George sees something special in Corey when he's like begging, because Corey even says like, hey, I just want to learn, and there's no better person to teach me than you, Mr. Feeny, like kind of buttering him up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I do think George at this moment kind of feels like, okay, if you're really going to sign up for this, if you're really going to take this seriously, then maybe we have a chance of getting this done. And so I think that Corey's kind of perseverance is something that Feeny kind of gets more on board with this idea with.
Yeah. I mean, which leads us to our next scene back at the Matthews residence, where Corey's in the backyard with an atlas. Corey does a lot of things outside, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's just a way to involve Feeny in the home life.
No, it is, but it's just like Corey does a lot of his schoolwork or thinking.
But you know what? The 90s was just about being outside. Why be inside? Like, there was nothing fun inside. Your friends couldn't play inside. There was no computer for you to play on. You may have had, like, Nintendo, maybe.
You're right.
I don't know.
You know what?
It's
Fresh
a different
air.
time.
Fresh air does the body good. And,
yeah, it's a different era.
But this is when Black Third Seat Kid and Sean, they point out that Corey's studying too much, and the teachers are starting to notice.
Corey, the more he studies, the more he becomes Minkus. Is that what's happened here?
I think that's supposed to be that trope of like there's the nerd and then there's the regular kid, and the more that the regular kid does things that the nerd would do. Yeah, it's
because they start throwing things at his head, and he does that ow.
Yeah, exactly like Minkus used to do.
Yeah, and it just, I don't understand. Like, they make it seem like you can't be smart and also be cool at the same time.
What makes you a nerd, or like what makes Minkus dorky and the glasses and the ow and like all this other stuff is the fact that Minkus is smart. And it's like the smarter you can't be smart and a regular kid.
Yeah, because Sean is seen as the coolest kid, and Sean is the opposite of smart. So
exactly, which is funny because, you know, later on, and maybe you pointed this out, later on, Topanga is both.
She is. You're right. Topanga does become the Hermione of the group later on.
Yeah.
We see that happen. So again, maybe it's just a first season.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to make it like easily identifiable, and so we're leaning really heavy on the tropes of like you can't be smart and a regular kid, at least in elementary school.
Yeah.
And so Corey is like, you know what? I need your help. We get to enter Minkus, who is wearing this. What is
Minkus is coming in. He's wearing cross colors. If you're not familiar, he basically looks like he was walked off the set of a TLC video.
Yeah,
like
he does. Literally TLC.
Album.
Yeah, first album.
Ooh, on the TLC tip. That one. It's borderline inappropriate.
A little. I have to. He is clearly
hat.
He is clearly trying too hard, and he's even like, "What's up?" And you could just like, to be fair, again, watching it, you're just like, "Oh yeah, this is like classic white boy watches 2 hours of music videos and assumes that he's hood now."
It's I don't know if you've ever seen someone like do like a Mexican impression in a mariachi band outfit, but this is the equivalent with hip hop.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. It's laughable. I mean, it's supposed to be. But yeah, this is just where like Minkus enters, and he's trying to be a regular kid now. And Corey tries to rope Minkus in. He's just like, "Help me," and Minkus is like, "Look, you're on your own." And everyone else has kind of left at this point, but Feeny enters the picture, and this is when Minkus turns to Feeny and is just like, "Every time I thank Guy out, they suck me back in," and like the audience kind of laughs and applauds. But I was really, really upset because I was like, "That's not even the quote."
Yeah, I think that they couldn't use the quote. I think it was purposely done to...
Okay, that's a very good way of looking at that, because I was like,
this is TGIF. They're drinking like Sunkist juice that's like missing like one S. You know what I mean? Like this is all knockoff television.
Yeah, copyright infringement. All right, that makes sense because, well, you know, it's very common that people misquote like that. I've seen that line misquoted several times. And just so everyone knows, the original line is, "Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in," which is from The Godfather 3, which again, it's like, are we saying that Minkus has seen The Godfather 3 and like
also the worst of the Godfathers?
Exactly. There's a lot going on. Minkus points out that he got his outfit from watching House of Style on MTV.
Do you remember that show?
I do not. Not at all.
I do not. I'm sorry, guys. Not
in the slightest. But he does say that he asks Feeny what he thinks about it, and Feeny's like, I think this is the decline of the Western civilization, which is very, you kind of expect that from Feeny.
I don't appreciate him looking at Minkus in his hip-hop based clothing and saying this is the decline of the Western civilization.
Again, I'm not surprised that Feeny said this though, but yeah, you're right. And then Minkus is like, I agree, and I'm gonna go watch Beavis and Butthead now. And my whole thing is like, yeah.
I also wrote this note that this is the second Beavis and Butthead call out we've had this season, and it's strange because it got the same crowd reaction as the first time.
Exactly.
And why are they trying to bite off their fame?
I guess Beavis and Butthead is like the biggest thing right now. It's like totally, but it's like are the kids who are watching? I mean, yeah, are the kids who are watching Beavis and Butthead also watching Boy Meets World?
The only thing I can think of is that, like, in the same way, because I do remember when South Park first came out, and that kind of being that thing that, like, the kids weren't supposed to watch, but they were watching anyway. Beavis and Butthead, I do remember seeing a little bit, but I was so young that I can't say as if, like, what the cultural, like, phenomenon of it was, like, how far it went to the point where ABC sitcom is referencing it. Like, that seems
constantly
strange.
It's been 5 episodes and we've had 2 of them referred to Beavis and Butthead, which again, the whole thing is I wasn't allowed to watch it, so I
saw the movie, bruh. In theaters twice.
All right, but this is when Feeny checks in with Corey, and he's just like, how's the studying going? I think you'll make a good bat boy. And he's just kind of leaning on the fact that, Corey's doing this for the prize, which Corey is, but Corey replies that he is enjoying learning this stuff too.
Yeah, and I think that this is where Boy Meets World starts to have that heart that we kind of expect from Boy Meets World, where Corey was originally, studying just to get the prize, but he realizes he actually enjoys it, and then Feeny starts seeing has this more prideful approach to Corey. He understands that Corey's working really hard. He likes that Corey is learning and enjoying learning. So I do think that there is some of the classic Boy Meets World kind of magic there. But it's very minimum.
No, you're right. Because like right in this, it's like where Corey's like for example, did you know about the Hawaii used to be the Sandwich Islands? And Feeny is like, oh yeah, is that named after someone? He's like, yeah, the Earl of Sandwich. And he's like, you don't think? And he's like, yeah, he invented the sandwich. And it's like he's not giving him the answer. He's leading him to see how far and how deep he's dived into this. And I think that this is the Feeny I know and love. This is where Feeny is Feeny, where he is seeing this potential with Corey and kind of fanning those flames.
Sure.
As opposed to earlier in the episode when he just seemed like hell intent on squashing them.
Yeah, it just seemed like he was so focused on his prize, and I think that's the thing that makes this Feeny seem weird, is that he's more so focused on what he's going to get out of it versus the kids, which never seems to be the case in any other. Like, he always seems to be putting the education of children first.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this moment kind of changes the episode, because you feel like there's a return to form for Feeny.
Exactly. So we get this small little kitchen scene where the family is quizzing Corey, and I like this, like it's a whole family thing. Everyone's there. Amy and Alan are like giving them little questions about geography, and then this is when Eric is just kind of like saying all these musicians, naming them to see if they have anything to do with his parents.
Well, Eric has decided, he's like, well, I'm not going to go to this concert. I'm going to go to another concert. And he's like, I'm going to go see Tina Turner. And he's like, that's our generation too. And, what about Eric Clapton? That's our generation too. Like, he just keeps kind of going back and forth. Elton John, that's us too.
Well, what I love about it is he goes Tina Turner and Amy's like, that's my mom's generation. So it's like, you think you have ownership, but we don't even have, like, what you're listening to now is like even older than you think.
But I guess I'm just like, oh, Eric is supposed to be hip enough to be going to an Aerosmith concert, but he doesn't even realize that they have songs that predate the year they came out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He doesn't know that Tina Turner's been around for a while. Like,
didn't he be like listening to Pearl Jam or something? Anyway,
yeah, he's been listing nothing but classic rock groups to the parents. and he has no understanding that they have a history that predates the 90s. And I just think that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. And it even kind of feels like it's not like Eric's even listening to these things on vinyl or anything. You know, there's nothing that shows that Eric is
this is radio,
it's just like on the radio. So, you know, like if this was a Madonna concert, I would kind of even understand it, but it's Aerosmith.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to just think about what I knew of music at the time. And I'll use this as an example, like in the early 90s, I understood that Michael Jackson was an artist that had music out, but I knew that he also used to make music when he was a kid too. Like I understood.
So I love that you. I knew you were going to use Michael Jackson because how could you not? And that's like as far as you and I are concerned, the 90s. Yeah, no, dude, I noticed. For those who can't see, TC is wearing his Thriller T-shirt.
It's for good luck.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly like Michael Jackson. I will not deny. I didn't really make the connection for Michael Jackson in the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson being the Jackson that I knew until way, way later. But I still he was just Michael Jackson. I didn't care if my parents listened to him. I don't know. I just feel like it's a weird relationship.
Yeah, I don't know why Eric, again, and then we probably have talked this to death, but there's no apparent reason for him to be so offended. And that's what it is. He's offended that his parents like the same songs that he likes. What?
Exactly. So next scene, it was a very short scene and it was kind of like unnecessary, but whatever. It does show us that Corey has been quizzing himself studying. So the next scene, we are at the regional tournament and we have all these teachers. Okay, now this is a very weird scene. We have all these teachers. There are 3 other students on stage that we see, and each of the teachers is like massaging the kid, kind of like as you would if it was like a boxing match. But it seems very inappropriate. It's inappropriate, but I will say that they were very smart enough to make sure that each of the pairs were same sex. So like you have a male teacher, a male student, a female teacher, a female student. And it was just like...
I don't see where it correlates. I don't see why having an adult rub your shoulders is necessary for a geography match. Like if they were doing something physical, maybe if this was gymnastics, it's as inappropriate as the prize for this contest.
Well, I love that they kind of hint at it because like Feeney's like, do you, like, are your shoulders tense, Mr. Matthews? And Corey looks around, he's like, yeah, you know what? It is. He feels like he could get... And then Feeney does this little bit of physical comedy where he's like, well, then roll your shoulders like this. And it's just a bit of fun, which you don't usually get from George. So I liked it, but...
I also think that Corey looked adorable in his little suit.
Oh, he does. Yeah. Corey, again, if there's one thing that Ben Savage does really well, Ben Savage sells this character so well. Like at this age, at every stage, he sells Corey. But like
Corey's just always played so earnestly.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I love it. All right. So anyway, this is when like Corey is just like a relaxed Mr. Feeney. It's in the bag. Corey's like smug and overconfident. And we know that he's been studying, but then we have like that scene flip where it's like he goes from being confident to looking extremely panicked.
Well, the reason why he's extremely panicked is because the moderator to this contest is giving out college level geography questions.
Yeah.
These are questions that no one would know.
I don't know about no one. I do feel that the whole point of this regional test is the questions are supposed to be hard. Like I didn't.
This seemed over the top for me. I don't know. This is 6th grade.
Yeah. But again, I don't know. I also said that I think the original concept was spelling bee. So
which it should have stayed. I feel like that would have been the easier thing for him to be like, oh, I could teach myself to spell. Like that's like an easier thing to learn.
Exactly. But I feel that like they didn't go with it because maybe Ben Savage couldn't just memorize those words. You know what I mean? Like
sure, yeah. Maybe there was a reason.
Yeah, they switched it for some reason. But like I guess because I'm not good with geography anyway, I was just like, all right, well, hard questions are hard questions. I didn't know any of these answers without Google, so good luck on it.
I don't know. I feel like I was pretty decent at geography, and that these questions just seemed really like questions you would get at a high school at the very least. But again, for this specific age group, it just seemed unnecessary. It seemed way too hard because, like you said, this is regional. This isn't even like the top competition. Yeah.
And then, all right, so with that, Corey's like, are these dudes working from a different globe? He's just like, he's asked his question and he panics and starts talking about the Earl of Sandwich.
For no reason.
For no real reason, which is like, it's a funny thing. It's a short, the whole tournament, like a really short bit. We see the afterwards where Corey is like really defeated. He's down on himself. He's just listing all the things that he knows about the states. One little note that I did put down there is he was like, Puerto Rico is still a territory, as is Guam, as a U.S. territory, as is Guam. And I was like, wow, at this point, he knows more than most Americans seem to know.
100%.
Puerto Rico still doesn't seem to be a U.S. territory in modern Americans' mindset. We're still having to teach them that. Yeah. The winner shows up and she's like, yeah, what does even a bad boy do? And yeah, again, it's like it shows
she has every right to question the prize. She has every right to question why this prize is necessary with this competition. And she even says the same thing Minka said, which is, I really wanted that pull down wall map.
Yeah, they should just go back to that. And that makes, again, this makes sense. Nothing else does. And like, I get that it's supposed to be like, a circle, as to a joke earlier, but it's just like, it's like they call out their own mistake.
Yeah.
All right, so fine. Yeah, I think one of the next to final scenes is we're back to the Matthews house, and this is where Eric, like, honestly, I'm happy that we're almost done with this Eric storyline.
Yeah, the fact that this was like the big resolution was Eric's storyline. Just it felt like,
yeah,
like how much attention are we going to give to this? But whatever.
Okay, so wait. But the good thing is Eric is talking about the concert, and in this scene we get to finally meet Heather, who is played by Nikki Cox. Dude.
Yeah, which is great.
Dude.
And I think, I really wish I was able to verify this, that this was one of the actresses that actually dated Will Friedle.
Oh, dude got to date Nikki Cox?
I think that this one and like Jennifer Love Hewitt were the ones that he dated in real life and that made it on the show. But you know what? I need to look that up to verify
kid you not. Nikki Cox was definitely a crush. Like,
oh, for sure.
And we get to meet her. She plays Heather. And I think personally, Heather is way out of Eric's league.
Well, what's interesting is that in the first episode, and then like every time you hear Eric talk about Heather, he always talks about her as if she's so far out of his league and he's so lucky just to be on the same date as her. But it seems like she has been like completely cool about this whole Aerosmith thing. She likes his parents.
Yeah.
And he doesn't give a damn that she's having a good time or whatever. He's just like, no, you're ruining this for me with Heather. But Heather doesn't care.
Yeah, so she's like, I like your parents. I think they're cool. And he's like, oh, I'm the lucky guy with the cool parents. And you're like, yeah, dude, that is lucky. What do you want?
Yeah, what are you even complaining about? Like, your life is good. Like, go to Syria. Like, what is up?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, and he goes, that's not even the worst part is not even that they were there. And then we get this little setup, and then Amy and Alan walk through the door, and they are dressed a little. You know, it's a little.
No, they're just like hippies. Yeah,
exactly. But they look like they said they had fun. Heather said that she had fun, but Eric's like, I didn't have fun because my parents were there.
Yeah, he said he couldn't have fun because he kept staring at them in the third row. Which
exactly
one. Why are you even at this concert if you're just going to stare at your parents the whole time? And two, you missed this concert.
Well, my whole thing was like, you're 64 rows behind them. And you can see, like, what are you doing? Like, no, I can't see. I can't tell what anyone's doing there. You have nosebleed seats practically. You should just be enjoying the concert anyway.
Yeah.
And then, but I do like this whole fact, because Alan's like, why should our fun get in the way of your fun? And he goes, because you're parents and you're not supposed to have fun. You're supposed to be sitting at home. Which is, again, it's like this teenage dynamic of you're not a real person.
Yeah, and I do think there is some truth to this storyline where we actually do see this, learning that your parents are actually people, that they're not just these robots that just clean up after you and just tell you when to go to bed. I do think there's something to that, but I feel like they could have done it in a much better way. Again, I think the story works with some tweaks.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the Aerosmith thing, I think, is a good tool.
Yeah. It is a generational. It does cross generations.
It's so poorly executed.
Yeah. And then that's when they said that they had backstage passage, which I'm like, you know what? They enjoyed themselves, and I like that. They showed that Eric may have had a hard time and a hard night, but Amy and Alan, they went at it. They had a really good night.
Yeah, they went balls to the wall with it. And what's interesting is that Eric goes to sit on the couch next to Corey, and he's like, "Corey, move over. I'll join you on the loser's couch."
Yes, Heather is on that couch.
And I'm like, "What? Like, did you just call your girlfriend a loser because she went to she got the tickets to go with you to be with her your parents were?" I don't know.
It's so like they show Eric is, again, he's being a teenager where he's not really, and I will say that that's very realistic. Like, you're a teenager, you're not really thinking about how other people feel, but it is just a thing where I guess being older, you're like a dude, give people credit.
I would be surprised if Heather is in another episode, because I would assume if Heather had any respect for herself, that she would have dropped Eric the moment that he like called her a loser, essentially, for being where his parents were.
Exactly. Well, I like, because Alan goes that we're at that awkward age where we're parents, but we're not dead yet. And then Eric gets upset and he's like, "I'm taking Nikki home." And then Alan like instructs them to sit right there and sit back on the couch. He gets very authoritative. And he sends Corey and Morgan to bed. And
I was confused by this whole thing, because it seems as if like they set this up as if Alan's telling everyone to leave the room so he could have this kind of parental, "you deliberately disobeyed me" kind of talk to Eric, but it doesn't pan out that way.
No, I mean, it is. They do switch it up. And what happens is instead he goes, "When I was your age, I had the type of father that you wanted. But I wanted the type of father that you got, and you're just gonna have to deal." It's like, I'm not that guy, and I'm sorry I'm not that guy. But he kisses Eric on the forehead, and then he leaves him there with Heather. And I that's when they realize that they have been purposely left alone. And I think that this goes back to kind of Alan with Corey and the water gun, where, Alan's like, "Look, you were so obsessed with us not having a good time. You missed your date."
I do think that Alan, in the same way that he's willing to wake Corey up to watch a baseball game, he's not completely blind to the fact that, his son didn't have a great time. Him and his wife had a great time. Let's leave the kids down here, not with the lights off.
Yeah. Because that's when Eric's like, "Oh, I have like the cool parents," and Alan's like, not that cool. Which, again, it's like what they're saying is like, enjoy your date. Enjoy the rest of the evening. We understand that you guys are probably going to make out, but let's not forget that you're in the house. One of our final scenes in the episode, Minkus is like back to normal. He says this little line like, "Nothing against Cindy Crawford, but I'm a Connie Chung type of dude," which, again, it's like this is literally written by someone who was like, "Oh, we're right into the MTV generation." I don't know. It's like,
yeah, I mean, all of this whole thing felt dated. Everything about this episode felt dated.
Yeah. And then Feeney says, his kind of, I guess, what would be usually a Feeney lesson, but he says a man doesn't know himself until he walks a mile in someone else's enormous pants. And it's kind of like a hint at like, that you got to see what it was like on the other side. Before he leaves, Corey asked Minkus if he knew the answer to the question that he had, and of course Minkus knew it, because as you pointed out, Minkus knows everything, and
he has no flaws.
Yeah, Corey approaches Feeney, and he's like, Minkus probably would have gotten you the sixth trophy that you wanted, and I just wanted you to know that I tried my hardest. And I like it. Feeny kind of wraps it up with this little analogy of 15th century explorers, and that geography was taking their boats as far as they could go until they went over the edge, and that Corey went as far as he could go, and together they've charted new territory, and Corey has earned himself an A on his geography quiz.
I think that this is the part of the show, again, where you get that Boy Meets World heart, because in the beginning of the episode, you see Feeny looking towards this all the plaques that he has of his previous wins. There's clearly a spot for another win there.
Yeah.
And at the end of the episode, Corey's like, you know what? I'm sorry I couldn't do this. And Feeny's like, hey, you pushed your mind as far as it would go. And you know what? It paid off. And he shows Corey his geography test, and he's gotten an A.
Yeah.
And Feeny takes that A test and he puts it up there with the rest of his tournament plaques and said, we did it, we won.
Yeah.
And this was the moment where I saw that and I was like, man, this is the reason why I love this show. It's because of moments like this.
Yeah, exactly. And this was a good balance, a good close to the episode. And yeah, I liked this ending. It's kind of cutesy, but I feel like it's one of those things where it's like this episode should have been a short. Like, it was an idea that wasn't really fleshed out.
I feel like every storyline in this episode should be B storylines in other episodes.
Correct. I completely agree. We get a little epilogue scene, which simply has Corey watching the World Series, and the Batgirl, the girl who won the competition and ends up being Batgirl, she protests, and they make like the joke using the same question that Corey. It's like just completely out there. It doesn't make any sense by a long shot.
Sure.
It just ties into it. But that is our episode. So let's bring it into our section of Feeny Taught Me.
Feeny Taught Me.
Feeny Taught Me, where we talk about the lessons of the episode. What did you think the lesson of the episode was?
I mean, I think the lesson is that if you try and you fail, it's best that you tried.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. For a decent Boy Meets World episode, and we saw this with the pilot, that the A storyline, the B storyline, the C storyline, they're all connected. In this episode, there wasn't any connection between the main storyline of Corey trying to be this bat boy and the B storyline of Eric and the parents at this concert. So it's like, what lessons did we learn? Well, Eric learned a completely different lesson than Corey, even though I don't really know that Corey or Eric learned the lesson.
Exactly. It's funny that you said that because I didn't write down a lesson. It was like, what's the main takeaway? I was like, I don't know, pick something. It literally could be whatever you want it to be.
And I think that's why this episode struggles to just capture our attention in general, is because there doesn't feel like there's any stakes across the board.
You're right. I mean, like, Corey gets like a bookend storyline, but no one else really has anything. We don't utilize Morgan really. The
only thing Morgan does in this entire episode is throw away broccoli.
That's true. I forgot about that bit.
Yeah.
Even. And so yeah, it's just kind of like I don't know, but. Anyway, so what grade do you give this? I think it's clear to say that it's not an A, but what grade did you give this?
No, I'm giving this a hard D.
A D? All right.
I'm giving this episode a D. And again, it's not that this episode is so bad, it's just that there are way better episodes. And coming off of the Topanga episode last week, which was clearly an A, this just loses so many points just for the lack of charm and the lack of connection between the different storylines and just the relevancy of the storylines. I think this was the weakest we've seen so far.
I'm not going to lie. I usually grade a little bit lighter, but I'm going to go with you on this. I'm going to give it a D. It's not what I think it could have been. I think we've come up with better solutions for the episode or like different ways they could have made this than they did. And this is just it's not Boy Meets World.
This feels like a script that they had before they started shooting things and getting audiences' reactions.
I agree.
Like, to see what works. I feel like once the Topanga episode happened, there was definitely decisions that were made, but we're not really seeing the results of that yet.
Exactly. I agree. And I think that there's nothing other to say than I agree with you, and we get better. So
yeah.
That said, what I was going to say,
not to deter people from continuing to watch this season, because it is a decent show, especially if you have kids and you kind of want to show them episodes that you watched when you were younger. Like, I feel like this is a great way to do that, and learning to love these characters before the show really builds, I think is great. So definitely continue to watch it. But there's just, this episode is a lot of learning on the part of us as an audience and as them as a show.
Yeah, and I think that we know that it gets better. We know that our storylines and even what they do with the other characters, we are still living in a Topanga-free world right now. So there's just going to
balance,
be balance. Yeah, there's just going to be other dynamics that we venture into. So those are for later episodes. Right now,
of course,
we're going to close this one out. And thank you for listening to Bro Meets World. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Facebook. A lot of you have been checking us out on Stitcher and iTunes. Thank you so much for that. Make sure all of the handles were at Bro Meets World. You can email us at bromeetsworld@gmail.com. Find me on Twitter at Extra Siege. That's XTRACEEJ. And TC, what's going on for you?
You can find me at Anna Kendrick Retweets, Anna Kendrick RT at Twitter. I'm also on Instagram. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, so yeah, thank you guys so much. We'll be back on another episode next week. Remember to try.
Right.
Do good. All right.